Hi Antoine, how are you?
Hey Billy, how are you?
I was a child, like a little kid. My father took me to a concert, and I told myself, okay, I want to be a drummer. So I was thinking how it all started with you.
I started off playing music by playing saxophone
Oh, nice.
when I was 7, I think. I saw, I think, a marching band, and I told my dad, "Yeah, this is what I want to play," and I pointed at the saxophone. And it was strange because since I was a kid, playing along with this Pat Metheny video with Paul Vertigo, and I was playing on these washing powders uh, cans, and so I guess I was always kind of attracted to drums and percussion in general. But then it's only when I was 12 that um, I actually got a drum kit, started really playing, and then up until my, I guess, 14 or 15, when I was 15 years old, then I really started to think, wow, this is actually great, and I would love to do this, extensively and do it as, you know, as a goal. I mean, I would have, I didn't really notice that music was so important to me until my 15 or 16 years old. I think that's about when I started to have my first band, and then I thought, well, you know what, I'll just try playing music and see if I can live off it, and ended up me being a musician. So yeah,
That's
I guess that's it.
very nice. As I as I see as the years go by, I realized I did many sideman gigs before I started to to do my own band because before I decided I will be a band leader. So, and I think all the experience from being a sideman it really shaped my direction, my experiences on how I will approach my own band. What about you? What do you think is like? You are more of a sideman or a band leader? What?
I like to think I'm both on an equal level. I would say the thing is, I've noticed that when I started um, seriously committing myself to my own bands, all the experience I had gained as a sideman really played off in the game in a way that I knew what it was. I knew really well what it was to be in a sideman's chair and to be given charts and music to work on, and directions.
Mhm.
So I kind of had an idea of what my musicians in my bands would require as instructions and so forth. So I guess that helped. Um, I think um, mostly like now again also in on the other way around works too. Like when I after I really worked a lot on my band leading process, then when coming back to sideman gigs, it made more sense, I think, because I knew what it was also to be a leader. And I guess you show more compassion to leaders that you play with after having a very strong leadership approach in a way that I mean, spending all this time writing music, organizing rehearsals, organizing gigs, trying to find space for everybody to exist, giving the right amount of instructions, um, all that stuff. And then you go back as a sideman, and then you show, in a way, I guess I showed more respect to band leaders
Mhm.
than before. and also in other contexts, in a way, I also knew, I guess, more the way to react to instructions, like, because sometimes, I mean, it's tough when you're, especially in jazz music, when most of the time you're trying to be yourself as much as possible, and you want to find the right balance between being yourself and serving the band leader's idea.
Mhm.
And I guess this is the toughest part as a sideman. It's like, how can you exist as yourself in an artistic way, but at the same time, um, carrying the, I mean, you're here as a duty also towards the
Yes.
band leader.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess both of these experiences um, make me, I would say, make me trust more, uh, and I don't know. It's I think it's really interesting to be on both sides of that experience. And the one thing now I would love to try though is to have a co-led band with other musicians. Like in a way, it's tough to find kind of, you know, like a very like this common ground that you have with other musicians, and you want to create something together. I would love to try that. I still haven't had the chance to do it, but I would love it.
Um, I recently like checked out your music, and I found out like Urbex and Next Tape, that are some of your basic projects, right?
Yes.
And would you like to talk us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So Urbex is the first band I started around 5 years ago, I think. And my initial idea with that project was to bring together musicians that I used to play with a lot in different contexts, mainly from the Belgian scene, actually exclusively from the Belgian scene. And it started off as an octet, so we were 8 musicians, and I wrote a lot of arrangements. And the first album is all about that. It's like um, a lot of music. I guess it's I mean, I've always been a huge fan of Pat Metheny since I was a kid, so I think it really went into that kind of shape, you know, like the kind of the Metheny group kind of vibe. And as a Belgian musician, I was deeply influenced by a band called Akamoon, which is like a very deep. It has a really deep landmark on the musical Belgian scene, in a way that they really kind of shifted the way they thought about music and everything. So yeah, I guess it's kind of in the middle of these different universe, and yeah, and then we played a lot together. We toured, and the amount of creativity that was in the band due to the musicians and the combinations of the musicians that were in it made me think about a new way of I had to reconceive the way to of writing for this band, because lots of people involved in the band were really having their own voice in a very specific way. I really wanted to exploit that. And for instance, Bram Deloz, who you know well, I think, he's a piano player, very talented from Belgium. And um, there's Bert Kools, who's the guitar player and who's mainly influenced and rooted in electronic music as a guitar player, and also in sound and everything. And Jean-Paul Estevenard, who's the trumpet player, and then we had percussion and everything. So I really wanted to exploit and uh, explore also all these possibilities. So the second album was way more improvised. So instead of having all these super written out and arranged pieces, I had more of like these 1-2 pages maximum compositions with more of basic information, and kind of more like cues and canvas that everyone could be playing with. Because what I noticed is on the first tour with the first album, when we started touring, I realized that we were playing kind of the same music every night. You know, it was like these 16 pages arrangements that were really um, we were kind of playing the same thing, but like more and more precise, and it was really tight. You know, it was impressive actually to see that we could handle that music that was pretty difficult. But then on the second album, every night was so different, and I really got my kick out of it, and I think the rest of the musicians as well. And I could feel that the music really evolved that way, because the fact that improvisation kind of took over the main process of the band was really rewarding, you know. And now we're preparing. I mean, it's actually recorded, and we're preparing the release of the third album, which was recorded in January, last January, during a live concert. And this is a tribute to Miles Davis's "Bitches Brew." And I decided to write, not to play anything from Bitches Brew, but to write an entirely new repertoire for Urbex that was based on the energy and the way that Bitches Brew was made. So with cues and signals and everything. And I didn't want it to be a pale copy of what it is, first of all, because I mean, let's face it, no one could ever done something as close as good as Bitches Brew.
Yeah.
Bitches Brew is such a landmark in music history that it's just impossible to go nowhere near it. So I didn't want to do that. This was not the goal. I just wanted to, I guess, to thank and show gratitude to this record and this period of time that really built me as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And the humility that you can get extract from it, because it's too good, and it's so innovative and everything. So I really wanted to go into that. And I started to be scared, because it's tough. But what I did is basically I listened to that period, like Bitches Brew, Live Evil, Isle of Wight, Big Fun, On the Corner. I listened to all these albums extensively. Like I spent hours listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess for 2 months I almost exclusively listened to that music.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped for a while, like for 2 months. I just never listened to it again,
Mm-hmm.
to just leave it somewhere. And then for a week I wrote right off. So I had no keyboard, anything. I was just sitting on the table, and I wrote all these bass lines and cues, because it's a really cue based music, kind of, in a way that my idea was that we would go into those grooves that I wrote. um, Funnily, most of them are in 9/4 for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And my idea was that anybody in the band could use one of the cues that was written on the chart and use it as a signal to go to another bass line, for instance. You know, so
Okay.
the charts are not like this, but like this.
Okay.
And I have the one bass line on top of it,
Yeah.
and then the rest of it, it's just cues for another bass line or another chord. Or, you know, I just wanted to use all these. My idea was that I wanted to reproduce the extensive amount of concentration and focus that that band used to have in the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and imply it into my band, so that on stage it was 9 people, and I wanted that everybody was so focused that if anybody would throw in one of these little signals, that the whole band would crash into something else, you know.
Okay.
So my idea was to um, my idea was to make sure that the whole band was on the same page. So we rehearsed for a couple of days before the gig and then played the gig, and that was it. We had the recording. And it was a stressful couple of days, I think, but funnily enough, when we before we got on stage, like 5 minutes before, I was so relaxed. Like there was no way this could have gone wrong because everybody was just there, you know.
That's
So
super.
yeah, I'm super looking forward to it, I have to say. And it's nice also to have an album where you don't edit anything. It's just
Yes,
there.
yes, that's great.
And with the magical moments as well as the moments where we're a bit lost. But it's nice to see how we can actually get out of the lost zones. You know, like
Mhm.
sometimes you're playing and this improvisation moment where you're like, oh my god, okay, how are we gonna get out of this? And then all of a sudden someone finds the solution. You know,
Yeah,
it almost feels like a video game or a football game somehow,
yeah,
you know, like someone is gonna find the way to just access this thing.
yeah. So I guess there is also like a lot of trust in between the band, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think this album wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have if it wasn't for the 5 years that we had together as a band. Honestly, like that's something I had to learn as a leader too, and I'm very thankful for their patience.
Hmm.
Um, there's an incredible amount of respect in that band, and I'm really grateful for that because they really put trust and patience into my um, ideas and the fact that we did this. It really takes a lot of trust from every part to do that kind of process because you need everybody to be on the same boat and to share the same idea of what the music could be, even with the little differences of style, but the way that we're all merging into this one thing, it's just so incredible. And I wish that for every musician in the world, honestly. I would even wish it to my worst enemy because it's so great, you know? So yeah, so this is my, I guess, like the jazz aspect of my leadership.
Hmm.
I mean, career as a leader musician. And Next Tape is a very different band, and I don't really consider it as a jazz band, kind of, because it's more of a song-based band in which influences may be varying from, I guess, Massive Attack to Radiohead to, um, all these electronic slash trip hop slash alternative bands. And the way of writing for that band is way different than Urbex because it's more, I'm kind of building um, uh, all these demos on my computer, with like more of a synth based music, and then there's a singer also, which is like the musical print and identity is way different from Urbex in a way that it's more of a kind of a shaped. I don't know how to explain, but it's more of a song based, basically song based band, and also I guess it's easier to carry a message because there's a singer. So
Atmosphere away, white as a ghost in marble. The coral is fading. Oh, look at that man standing tall.
How about practicing, like practicing in your instrument on drums, or composition? Like, do you? I guess you practice drums like in a daily basis. What's your practice routine?
I mean, it depends on periods. Like, I mean, obviously now we're in this lockdown period, so I really had time. Although I didn't touch the drums every day.
Hmm.
I guess periodic hard practicer, I would say,
Yeah.
in a way that I'm not one of these guys that, by the way, I respect so much, one of these guys that can play for like 4 hours a day at least.
Yes.
I just can't. Sometimes I would spend 30 minutes and another day I would spend 3 hours, 4 hours. That's my big maximum for practicing the drums, I would say. Also, I'm in an apartment in Brussels where I can't play the drums, so I have a silent kit. Actually, here it is.
Super nice.
So, but yeah, I'm trying to. I'm doing also like polyrhythms exercises and like these stickings exercises, everything. But I spend time. I would say I see it more as I try to touch the music every day. That's the one thing. Like, I think there's not a day that goes by without me attempting to do something at music, whether it's drums. Nowadays, I've been playing the bass, or electronics, or composing. And to me, like, composing is another instrument. It's like, I don't really believe in godly inspiration that comes all of a sudden. I mean, that can, of course, occur, one of these moments where you're just basically, I don't know, like taking a shower and then there's this whole tune that comes in your head, you write it, and that's it. I think this can only happen when you practiced composing. And to me, composition is something that you have um, to practice as much as you would practice bass or drums or cooking or bike, or like whatever you do, you need practice. It's like, it takes, I guess, the level of expertise that you get in any field, whatever it is, that's going to make you able to do more of that, if that makes sense. I mean, to me, composing is like, it's a state of mind, kind of like, it's kind of going against the legend of what composing is, to lock yourself up for 7 days in a row and writing music. Because it's like, it's not what's expected from a composer. Like, people, I think the legend of it is like, yeah, the guy just suddenly wakes up in the middle of the night and writes this symphony. It's not the way it goes, I think. Like, if you ask, I don't know, I guess Pat Metheny, for instance, who we were talking about earlier on, who I was talking about earlier on, because I'm such a fan, but the guy writes so much music. Like, Wayne Shorter, he's like practicing all the time on composition. Yeah, I mean, he's like writing music all the time. Or Ben Wendell, he's like writing songs. Like, it's just you're trying to write stuff, and then sometimes it works. Sometimes you may actually spend 5 hours on 4 bars and not get anything out of it, and then you can spend 20 minutes on a 32 bar song, and then it's gonna work. Yeah. So in my perspective, composing is like a totally other instrument. I mean, to me, it's more valuable to have 10 minutes of incredibly focused practice than 3 hours of fooling around.
Yes, exactly.
And in those 10 minutes of focus practice, I count 2 minutes of just playing around, because that's basically the way the human body is made. And if you read about neurological science, like the human species, and most of species on planet Earth, learn by playing. And the game, I mean, games really put you in this educational um, position.
Yes.
And this is really, I think it's something that in our society we tend to forget in every aspect. Like, and music is not, I mean, music takes part in this problematic, I think, because I don't know how the school program is in Greece,
Mm-hmm.
but in Belgium, for instance, it's really old school, kind of. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like we tend to be, I wouldn't say proud because Belgium is a real surrealistic country in a way, but like, yeah, this is the way it is. You know, education is like this. You know, like we have 8 hours a day for 5 days with this topic and this topic and this topic, and whether you actually are good into this or not, you have to do it and you have to succeed. Otherwise, you're considered as you're going into another rank of study, which is like a more of a technical thing, and then for some reason you have less access to later on, like for instance, now if you want to study music in a conservatory,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have a secondary school degree. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that if you want to go study music for 5 years in the rest of your life, you're supposed to be able to be good at mathematics and science and everything. Like you couldn't, like I have a friend who's a great woodworker. I don't remember the name in English, but like
Mm-hmm.
he's Jean-Paul basically is a trumpet player. To me he's like the greatest trumpet player in Europe, and I dare saying it out and loud because to me he really is. And the guy was in technical school learning how to work on wood, and then towards the end of his scholarity he learned that if you couldn't enter the conservatory if you didn't have a general degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dropped out, of course, so he didn't finish and never went to the conservatory, and that's really sad because that's the way it is. And I didn't know why I wanted to go there. Sorry, I'm a bit going away from the topic, but I guess what I wanted to say with this is we kind of lost the essence of what education is, I think, which is not a paper. It's just how you get curious and interested in things and the way you learn them.
Yes, understand it. Yeah, the only thing I remember I got from this process myself was like I I learned how to discipline, to be
Right,
disciplined.
method.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing, because I had to manage like my time, my progress, and I wanted to succeed because I wanted to make it to the university, although it
Right.
was like music.
Yeah, but that's great that you took something out of it, like
Yeah.
method is really important for everything. Like the learning process takes a lot of discipline, and I guess like when you get out of conservatory, for instance, it took me a couple of years, I guess, to finally find the way of discipline myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're in a conservatory, you have a regular teacher and everything. Like people give you things to
Mm-hmm.
work on, and then you have to find yourself things to do.
Yes.
So it took me a long time, I think. But then once you have found this method that works with you, it's just so rewarding also, I think. Once you realize that you can actually teach yourself things, my God, like what a relief.
Yes, this is amazing.
Yeah.
That all this like social media and how do you communicate your music in the digital era is important, like for your career, like
Right. Well, obviously for the last, I guess, at least 5 years, if not 10, but for the last 5 years, I could notice personally that it's mandatory. Like you need that. It's kind of awful and I wish we could stay away from it a little bit more. But now, if you want to communicate about anything, you need social media, and it works even more than the press, and that's crazy. But so I would say I mean, we're talking the biggest ones like Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
Those are like the main acts, the main places where I share stuff. And even though I may sometimes not like it, sometimes I think it's nice because it provides you with easy exchange of information. Like, and this is something like before the lockdown period, we used to share a lot of information through that, like just basically sharing info, promotional material, and that kind of stuff. And then during this lockdown, I found it really helpful to help you go through it. Kind of, it's funny because on the one hand, I spent more time away from the computer during this lockdown period, more connected with my surroundings, kind of. But at the same time, I feel like I use it in a more appropriate way for our goals and purpose as musicians. And I see all these drummers being inspiring. And if I only take drummers, because I've been checking out the things, you know, like even like like BMX community or stuff that, which is, it's funny, I would have never done that before, but that was great. Anyways, but it's nice to see everybody, you know, sharing things, and it's something I think I kind of didn't notice before, and then I started to think, okay, I'm gonna take part into this and share stuff too and contribute, and then I started to write these etudes, Flampton the Curve, with a very funny wordplay, but then it was a way of using flams and ratios, I mean subdivisions, in the same exercise, and it's been nice, and I feel like I've improved, and apparently some drummers did as well, thanks to these studies. So I'm glad that it actually was useful to certain people. And so now on this educational level, I think I'm going to investigate into that, maybe opening a Patreon account or something like that, you know, like, because as musicians, especially in a lockdown period where you don't have any more gigs, you have to find new ways of income, and I think this might be a good idea, I guess. I don't know yet, but I think I'm gonna do it. I have a lot of exercises that I want to share, and of course it would be nice to make a little money with it, obviously.
Yes.
But for the live streams, for instance, I think it's nice that musicians, I didn't do live streams, I can't really, but it's nice that musicians shared music for people to go through lockdown. I also think, on the other hand, that it's important to not make culture too free, in a way that we still need to make money with this. It's kind of awful, but economy goes that way. Like, musicians and artists in general still needs to put food on the table, and a way to do that is to make money with what you do. So if you put everything out there for free, I just don't have an answer, but I wonder what impact it's going to have on the cultural sector and the cultural environment after this.
You know, your suggestion to somebody that goes out from school and you know, doesn't have an idea of the real musician's life, how it is, and the challenges and everything. So, like, if you have any advice on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, my main advice as musician is, because you want to get creative and stay creative, and that's kind of the only way to survive in this environment, I guess. So my one advice is to first listen to as much music as you can, because that's the reason why you're playing music in the first place. And the second thing is, as drummers, I think we should never sleep on the tradition, because that is where, I mean, like jazz is like not even a century old, kind of. I mean, it is, but I mean, it's not like it's 400 years of studying music. It's like very dense for a short amount of time compared to the you know, the human history. But I guess, I mean, drums is such a, I mean, the instrument was invented by jazz, so we need to know what happened. And I think that's really important in the drummer's process, to know what came before us and how actually are we dealing with all that. So yeah, just listen as much to music as you can, and
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
get creative.
I'm trying to think of some new concepts, and that's why I came up with this idea, like to be in touch with musicians that I admire, and that
Great.
you know they will give you more drive to
Yes.
to get through this. You know?
Well, thanks so much for having me, man. Anyways,
Yeah.
also, like you said, made me realize we all desperately need a haircut, but that's gonna come soon enough. But it's pretty awful right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's a nightmare. Like.